worse, the German or the Italian, many more deaths and worse treatment within the Japanese camps. She attributes this to what was going on in society at that time. It was a very militaristic society where they had a sense of racial superiority. The Japanese at that time worshipped the emperor and felt that their race was superior to the Chinese, to all the other Asian groups, and to the Caucasian. When you grow up in a militaristic society or authoritarian society, which is a synonym, there's something called transfer of oppression. Okay? If you're growing up and the adults around you, the teachers, the parents are treating you in a very, very strict, oppressive way, a lot of punishment, a lot of shaming, then what are you going to do? You're going to transfer that to other people. Okay? And that's a pretty good theory as to one of the causes of bullying, right? We extend that to that whole topic. So if you're experiencing very oppressive kind of home life, then you might go out and treat your brothers and sisters that way, or treat other people like that. They also, saving face and not being shamed was absolutely crucial to their sense of self and their sense of dignity. So it's one of the reasons why we were actively living. Other phrases: intoxicating power, fixated fury, and then that infamous kill order. There was apparently, it did not happen, but apparently there was this order out there that they would never allow the prisoners of war to escape. They would kill them before they would ever be liberated, because they don't want the treatment to be reflected back on where they ran these camps. They killed the prisoners when they were allowed. Okay, I wanted to mention an idea from social psychology called the fundamental attribution error. And this is an error that most of us make. It's a reasoning error. I hope you can understand this. It's the tendency to overestimate the effect of innate personality traits and underestimate the effect of the situation in explaining social behavior. Now, what that means is, when I do something wrong, when I'm not good, I make bad choices, I explain my behavior by means of the situation. Well, I had to do it because I was pressured by my friends, or there's some reason why I had to do what I did. Okay? But when I look at somebody else who does something wrong, I think of that as that's because they're a bad person. They have bad character. There's something wrong with them inside. It's not the situation around them. It's something wrong with them. And we tend to do that. Okay? I think when it's our own children, we tend to think of it as it's a situation, right? It's a social situation. It's somebody else's children, oh boy, that's a bad thing. That's the fundamental attribution error. And I think human beings do this all the time. Okay? So, when we think, I don't know what, those of you who read the book, how were you feeling thinking about Japanese and Japanese culture as you were reading this? Yeah, all right. Yeah. So that gives you then what kind of understanding of the people that were in that, the Japanese people who were in that situation. Yes, sir.
I think one of the things that really explains the Japanese, at least in my estimation, when you're in a fight and one group is involved fighting another group, killing becomes somewhat of a necessity. You remember the part in the book where they were at sea for probably a couple of weeks in Iraq, and they had a couple of free flares left. Finally, they heard planes flying overhead, and shot out the flare. Didn't see the flare, but that plane disappeared in the distance, and then it came back. And when it came back, it flew over them. Turned out that it was a Japanese plane. Here's a group of defenseless people that have absolutely no ability to harm the earth, floating in the middle of the ocean, and the plane started to scrape the raft. That created a situation, of course, where they put several holes in the raft.
Yeah.
Which, in that part, it was miraculous that they were able to pass that and stay alive. I think that was probably the most shameless aspect of what I consider inhumane flow.
Yeah. It's a good example. I guess the point I'm trying to make along with that is that any of us put in certain social circumstances might do things that we shouldn't do. That we would not be proud of, we might consider immoral, not right. And we don't want, we wouldn't want to think we would. And maybe some people wouldn't. But those social forces really do affect behavior. That's the message of social psychology. We tend to think of ourselves as being autonomous. We do things because we think that it's right or wrong. We have these standards. But when you're in some social situations, sometimes that can be overwhelming. And that's what happens sometimes when kids get in trouble. You're around here. You think of your kid as doing well. He's a good kid. And then all of a sudden he does something. How did that happen? And that social context. Okay, another theme, the struggle for dignity. And this is where I think Hillenbrand's own life parallels what Louis went through. While Louis in the POW camps, he is, it's just torture, just constantly trying to hurt him, degrade him, humiliate him. They had him to, I won't even go into the details, those of you who read it, just really disgusting, gross things. And they starved them, really abused them terribly. Hillenbrand, while she was going through her chronic fatigue problem, she went to a whole series of doctors, and in this article, and many of the doctors just told her, it's in your head, it's just a psychological problem you have. Or they said, here, I've got this new treatment, try this one. They sold. So she shows her own anger about how she was treated, how she felt degraded by nobody understanding her and treating her as somebody who had psychological problem or physical problem. I think that's one of the things that made her feel the bond with her. She's going through this. As Louis said in the video, if you caught it, he felt she was more heroic than he was because she's been doing it for 30 years. And Louis only had 2.5 years. They're both heroic. Okay, and this is what Hillenbrand says about dignity. The self-respect and sense of self-worth, the innermost armament of the soul, lies at the heart of humanness. To be deprived of it is to be dehumanized, to be freed from and cast below mankind. Men subjected to dehumanized people experience profound wretchedness and loneliness, and find that hope is almost impossible to retain. Without dignity, identity is erased. Very nice street. Okay, now to maintain dignity, then, just like you've seen in a lot of movies, the POWs had to develop some kind of resistance, some kind of subversive activity. It's kind of what kids do in class when they feel like they're not getting respect. We're going to find a way to get back. You know, we're going to find a way. They'll subvert the classroom and the teacher somehow in some situations. So they smuggled things, they stole things, they tricked the guards, and what it really didn't help them that much except to give them a reason to live. Okay, the triumph was in the subversion. So if we can subvert what these people are doing to us, we somehow can survive. We have a reason to go on. And Louis' special talent when he was a kid was stealing stuff, and he was a world-class thief in the prisoner of war. We found formed a band of brothers. Okay, well, on the long section, I have a real question here for you. I don't know why Hildebrand spent so much time describing this fellow who got the nickname of the bird, Watanabe, this sadistic guy. Does anybody have a theory about that? The book even ends with this character. Why did she spend so much time describing him? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Sorry, Rebecca. I think he's the symbol of forgiveness. I mean, ultimately, Louis has to forgive this man who tortured him. She uses him as that kind of way to manifest the forgiveness.
That horrible man.
Yeah, that horrible man.
Yeah. So if you can forgive this man, you can forgive everybody.
Right.
That's
If he can forgive that man, I can forgive. I personally can forgive the person who's done me the most harm.
Yeah.
Compare nothing.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Unfortunately, Watanabe himself really never came to any conversion. So even towards the end of his life. Yeah.
Which I think is, I'm sorry, which I think is very common. I mean, that's the ultimate example of forgiveness is when the person who you need to forgive isn't willing to meet you.
Yeah. Very good. Steve?
For me, we visualize the Lord as a way that sees his hand and the scenario. The same visualizes a person-to-person scenario. The world is another. And the person. And he begins to back and back and his head. And just like a spirit,
Okay. Thank you. Louis and Watanabe were locked in this power struggle, and again, Louis' personality, never giving in, never submitting, made him the target. Very unfortunate. It occurred to me at one point to ask this question: would Louis have been better off submitting to the bird? Any thoughts on that? Yeah, it would have been really. And he was beat up. I don't know how this man, he must have had 20 concussions. Getting hit in the head all the time. I don't know how his brain survived. He's now 96 or something like that. He's still lucid. Whoops. Is this the slate kind of order?
One thing that I noticed that I was really surprised at was how many photographs they had. I mean, in the middle, they had photographs of the bird, and I just can't
Yeah, me
to
too.
see what he's talking
Yeah.
about. Really like guys that didn't read the book, because you have to go read the book now. My husband read it spring break of 2011, and he didn't want, he had a book night. So he didn't move out of his chair for like 3 days. He sat there reading that book, and I started it on the plane ride home, and I think I was done in 2 days myself. It's just so hard to put down once you start.
Yeah,
Such a nice book.
very true.
And real solid.
Thank you. Good job. Yes.
I think they were all, I'm not sure, I mean, maybe someone else has an idea, but I think they were Louis' personal collection.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know.
I don't know if it was.
A lot of them were.
Yeah. And she really went out all corners of the world finding this stuff. So she might have done it. Okay, then the end of the war, very abruptly, you all know the story of the atomic bomb and Hiroshima. I read Hiroshima, the novel, not the novel, the book, in high school. I remember reading that. How many of you read that book? Smaller book. It's about what happens to the people in the city when the bombs drop. Okay. And of course, shows the devastation, incredible power and devastation, and the people, the civilians that were evaporated, vaporized by the bomb. And I remember I went to high school in the 60s too, in a certain era then, and I thought, no, that was wrong, you know, that was just wrong to use that kind of weapon and use it on civilians. And then I read this book, and I had a different, I have to be honest, I had a different response when I read the book. It made me rethink my feelings about abuse of people. I don't know if any of you had that same thought.
This is the question. How long am I supposed to do? This question is why so weird because we use it as a or go to the state of a lot of lives. The state. What is the state? You did more than 1% argue both sides of it.
It made me more sympathetic to the use of the atomic bomb. They were estimating 500,000 deaths if they had to go in and actually conquer Japan, and itself. No way of knowing how many exactly, but thousands and tens of thousands would die. And I guess what got me was, every human life is important, but when you focus on what happened to these servicemen there, it just shifts your sympathy. It shifted my sympathy over to them. I just couldn't help but feel that. How could you then have them go back and invade them? Any other thoughts about it? Of course, it started the atomic age. Now we have, the specter. That probably would have happened with Russia was developed. In fact, some people claim that that's why we actually did it. So we would let Russia know, so that we would know that we had that power. Okay, and then almost immediately, according to Louis, he has his transformation. His rage against his captors was gone. Forgiveness coursed through the men in the camp. And that brought up the question, what would cause that kind of immediate feeling, that sense of forgiveness to these people who have been more or less tortured? Can anybody explain that? Again, I don't have an answer. It seems to me miraculous. Well, the bombs dropped, and then they basically the emperor gives his address, and everybody surrenders. and then the camps are opened up, and the guards leave. And I mean, they could have gone after them. They could have tried to kill them, people who were touching them. But according to Louis, this was the more common response of the POWs. What the Japanese themselves. Perhaps. Okay, the book is entitled Unbroken, but to a significant extent, Louis was broken by PTSD. After the war, this is some of the PTSD symptoms that he experienced. He had continual nightmares, he had suffocating anxiety and fear, flashbacks, hallucinations, amnesia, rages, drinking binges. Okay? And that's some of the symptoms that you look for in post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD, you hear a lot about it now because of our guys in Iraq and Afghanistan coming back with this disorder. It's also used in a more general sense to describe people who have had something trauma happen to them. The full diagnosis of PTSD, though, is very specific, and it does involve an event where the person really feels that their life is threatened, okay? That they're going to die. Okay? They experience extreme helplessness, okay? Extreme fear, and then it starts to affect them in all these different ways. These are just some of the symptoms.
Along those same lines, it's so tragic to hear the war of our people coming back, killing themselves, that we lost the entire war. So we're not getting to something. The suicide rate is much higher.
Well, I haven't heard that the numbers are quite that way, but there's certainly a very high suicide rate. It's a very serious problem. There's a big article in the Tribune last week. One theory about that is, off on a tangent here, one theory about that is that it's the repeated employments. So you don't go there just, in Vietnam you went for one tour. And then if you had to go back, you would volunteer. In Iraq and Afghanistan you had 2, 3, 4, 5 sometimes. And that repeated exposure to the feelings of vulnerability and helplessness. Okay, here's some statistics. 84% of POWs had neurological damage. It doesn't surprise me at all. With brain trauma. 85% had PTSD. 30% more suicides than other soldiers in the war. And 25% had alcohol. Of course, that's probably really. Okay. So, do you know what I'm talking about? That first quote, the quest that had saved him as a kid was lost to him. What's that refer to? That's a teaching question. His running, right? Yes, his running. He couldn't do it anymore. He had suffered enough damage that he could no longer compete like that. He was older too. He no longer had that way to find himself in the cinema. Now, although he felt that initial forgiveness and relief, later on he was taken up with the revenge and retribution feeling, and felt like he had to find and seek out and punish the bird for the terrible things that he done. Then he meets his, actually called the love of his life, Cynthia Applegate, who was really, you saw a picture of her in the video, right? She's a beautiful woman. Kind of a socialite, wealthy family. Why she fell for Louis, I'm not sure. Except he must have been a real charmer. That's all I got to say. He must have been a real charmer because he wasn't of the same social class. But he decided he saw this woman, this beautiful woman, kind of like Gatsby and Daisy. He saw her and he wanted her and he went after her and he got her. And they were married like for 3 months. She ran away and well, it was pretty wild. She had a pretty wild streak too. Okay? Yeah, all throughout the country. So he finds this wonderful woman, beautiful woman, marries her, they have a child, and then it doesn't really do the trick for Louis though. He still is caught in the grasp of the PTSD and the alcoholism. And the question is, why do you think that, why did that relationship save? It'd be very romantic if it did, right? Can't love and family save you? And he was not nice to her. Read the book, but that's kind of that part of the book where he's drinking all the time. He's angry. He goes into rages. He mistreats her, uses her. She hung in with him a long time. They did separate at one point. Now, this is that. Whoa! I didn't know this was a book. I don't know if any of you knew that. I didn't know, but this is Billy Graham way back when. You know, these real early years of evangelizing. Okay? This tent revivals out in Los Angeles, and according to Louis, Cynthia and Louis were on the verge of completely breaking up. Divorce, the end of things. And she talked him into going down to the revival of Billy Graham, which was one of his famous sermons. And according to Louis, it was that night he found it. He found the reason to live, to give. He let God come into his heart. He got that sense of higher power. It was one of those apparently sort of miraculous kind of transformations. It surprised me. But he says, right after that, no more flashbacks, no more drinking, no more smoking, and dedicated himself to serving God, taking the message out to people in the world, and particularly he wanted to help young kids like someone like himself. His rage, his fear, his humiliation, helplessness had fallen away. He believed. Forgiveness, beautiful and effortless, and complete. So that's the redemption part, and it surprised me. Any thoughts on it? Very short. The same thought. It was very, very short part of the book. He had a huge part of his life. See? But then, you know, maybe that's how things work sometimes. It's hard to explain how that would impact in such a profound way. Yeah.
He sat here and said, that was it. That night, man, he's dying.
Yeah, there's a lot of breakfast things in his life. Okay, pretty close here. So Louis then has a new purpose. He's not a runner anymore. He's not an Olympian anymore. Now he is somebody who goes out and spreads the Christian message. He becomes a line, I think, with Billy Graham, goes out as a speaker throughout the country. Of course, he's got a lot of fame that makes him, a real draw. I'm sure Billy Graham liked that. He became, developed a Victory Boys Camp for quick-fisted, hard-faced boys, kind of an adventure camp to help them. And then for decades after that, he had honors, awards, dedications. People would call him in for the Olympics. People would give him this and that award. He lived a charmed life in a sense. And I love this line. He remained infectiously, incurably happy. Boy, that's amazing, isn't it? You saw what he went through? Just amazing. And I think that's part of why people love him so much. Even in that video clip we saw, it's just got that spirit. Okay. And then back to everything happens for a reason. I think Hildebrandt plays around with that idea. Was this all part of a plan? Was this all part of something that was meant to be? She doesn't say it. She never makes that interpretation. It's there. It's suggested. Okay. I wanted to mention the other people that were so heroic. Phil, the pilot with his airplane, one went to the same plane as prisoner of war camp. Bill Harris, who went back to the Korean War and died in a heroic battle, saving the soldiers. And then his brother Pete, who apparently was also traumatized by what we call vicarious traumatization, just by the experience that his brother went through. It was extremely stressful for Pete. And Pete stayed loyal to him all the way through. Okay, I'll take that middle question. Why do we embrace Louis and his story so wholehearted? Thoughts on that? Yes, you do know. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Oh. You like Harold? He lived to be quite an old man. They had war prosecution with war crimes. So he hid for several years to get out. They never found him. And then when what was it that caused them to, the Americans called off the prosecution. What was the reason? There was a general amnesty, but there was a political reason for it, wasn't there?
They needed an ally. Did they need an ally?
An ally for what?
With Russia.
The Soviet Union, that's it, right. The Soviet Union was gaining power, and they wanted Japan as an ally, so they didn't want to have all that tension that was going on. So they just said, everybody's got amnesty. And then he emerged, and lived to be like 90s. She's an English teacher. Okay, now here are my ordinary lessons. I try hard. Okay, and I tried to focus this on our kids too, because we want to take something from this and for ourselves, but also for our own children. For the first part of the book, I think what is demonstrated is that children need to be accepted for who they really are. And that's not easy to do. And they need to be helped to develop their ability to cope with life's challenges. So, we oftentimes have an idea of the way our children should be. And they have different gifts. And to accept them where they're at, really, the real true self, is a real challenge for parenting. Okay? It's something we say, with the lip service to it. I'm not sure it's always, it's never easy to do unless they fit what you want for them, match you. But they don't match you, it's a hard thing. Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes. And then, given that, let me go down. Children need someone who takes a special interest in them. That I think is demonstrated in the book. Someone who won't give up on them. That's what I'm saying. So if they go into a struggle, because they don't fit here and there, if you don't give up on them, you really don't give up on them, I think they can make it through. I think they can come out, they have a much better chance of coming out and finding themselves as they mentioned around. But that, you have to have that faith in them. I've certainly seen that in my practice, looking at families and seeing kids who struggle with them. 5 or 6 or 7 years later, they come back and tell me, okay, figured it out. I'm okay now. I didn't go to college, but now I'm doing this. It works. It's a great thing. Of course, children need or needs to get positive attention and praise. Okay, you got to find out. I think Barrington does a pretty good job on that. They try to provide a lot of ways that the students here can find a way to get some positive attention and be involved in something. Yes.
As an educator, I certainly had a lot to share with children who were parts of trouble. What I didn't want to do is try to spirit. I try to challenge, try to accept it, try to feel more positive. Once you feel the child's spirit, it's like
It's a nice middle. Yes, okay. There's no mention of it all. He did have children. But there's no discussion of that. What kind of father was he? Yeah. We'll have to find these kids and ask them. Which we could do, but we could probably go on and send a message. Okay. Okay, my second ordinary lesson is optimism. Optimism is the fuel for resilience. Optimism is partly innate and partly learned. You know what I mean by that? Okay. If you had a kid who was optimistic from the very beginning, you were born that way, you saw it, and then you have another child not that way, and it's just, in some respects, the way they are. Optimism is partly tied to mood and life experience. So if you're going through a tough time, you're having some struggles, some depressions, some trauma, it's hard to remain optimistic. But it can be developed slowly over time with positive experiences. There's a whole area of psychology called positive psychology. I've got a reference in my bibliography that purports to be able to help people learn how to be optimistic. There are ways to do it. You can teach it, you can learn it. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. You can actually learn how to be more optimistic. Okay, my opinion is optimism is best nurtured by a dedicated family member or some surrogate that serves that family. And optimism never gives up. Okay, so we've got resilience, optimism, and purpose. Resilience is strengthened by purpose. You see this in the book, right? Louis is driven by a sense of purpose. Okay? First, to be the best runner, outstanding athlete, to be the Olympian, and then to survive, and then to spread the word, to spread his sense of the divine to the rest of the world. What do you think? These are thoughts. I don't expect you to necessarily agree with me. We need a purpose in life that goes beyond ourselves. What do you think, folks? You think that's true? Yes? Everything? Lost himself. What that purpose is, I don't know. Is it enough purpose to want to be successful, to make a lot of money, to be powerful, and a lot of our kids want to be famous? Is that enough purpose? Yeah. Very well said. I do agree wholeheartedly with the second idea that purpose gives meaning to life and helps us deal with suffering. I have no doubt about that being the case. That when you're hit with suffering, tragedy, you do need to have a sense of purpose to be able to be resilient. And I think purpose also, in many cases, helps us to be connected to a social group. And I think social connection is very important. That was a major point in Madeline Levine's book, Price of Privilege. Oftentimes in the affluent communities, suburban communities like Barrington, oftentimes don't have the social connections. That disconnection, somewhat isolation, can be very, very difficult. Big.
As opposed to, which I think most of us like are opposed to, where really purpose changes as you move along in life. It's not so grand, it can be, making sure that things are working. Really, whatever that is, I feel like it be something that idea of purpose going to be very large. And active along these lesson parties that they think something that they can actually just
Yes, I agree very much. Right. I think that's a problem we have in our culture. I agree. Okay. All right, I think this is the last one. I don't expect you to write those down, but these are some books that came to my mind. The first one is an older book, but I love it. It's Raising Your Spirited Child. She uses the word spirited rather than willful or stubborn or difficult. Your spirited child, because she wants to honor that child that has that kind of internal drive like Louis did. How to Parents and Children Will Learn. Sylvia Grimm writes about gifted kids and kids who underachieve. It's a good book. This is a more recent book, Resilience of Science and Mastery of Life's Greatest Challenges. I thought that looked like a pretty good book to me. I haven't read it yet. I like it. It's awesome. Kenneth Ginsburg, did you see him when he was here a couple years ago? Okay. Building Resilience in Children and Teens, very good presentation speaker. The Optimistic Child, Martin Sullivan is the father of positive psychology. That's the fellow who thinks you can teach optimism. So, if you're interested in that topic. And then I wanted to mention The Price of Privilege, because I love that book. I think it's just a great book. And if you haven't read it, I'd say read it. It's really, really relevant to us here. Some kind of community. I go back to it all the time. And I thought I mentioned Rick Warren, Purpose-Driven Life. Anybody read that one? Yeah. A very good book. Yeah, his son recently committed suicide. Just that he committed suicide, that he had a long-standing problem with depression. And it's actually a pretty big topic among the evangelical church community now because nobody knew about it. And they're wondering whether being a pastor, being a figure of a very large, successful church, inhibited the family from talking about it, sharing it, and there's probably something to it. I just think it's very difficult to be the son of a famous person, period. Or a very successful person. Very difficult. I wouldn't want to judge Rick Warren at all. I think he's a good man. It's a good book. Okay, that's it.
Stand up, our Barrington area library. Thanks again, and everyone's trying to stay here.
Thanks for being so patient. It's a long show. Great job. Thank you.